Welcome, friends, to this new guide to playing the Battalion Combat Series of wargames. Fantastic series of wargames, so much meat and depth into them. Love it. Today we're looking at orders. Orders are an optional rule, but I hope by the time you finish this video, you will be convinced that you should apply it as a standard when playing your games, because it really adds so much to the game and takes away some of the artificiality of playing. This is the 9th BCS video I've done, and I've got 2 more in advanced scripting at the moment, so watch out for those. Here's the full list. If you haven't seen these, go to my site and check out the playlist. So much fun. Right, orders. So I'm going to suggest that playing without orders is sort of playing on easy mode in BCS. Now, you can say, but Dickie, BCS is quite hard. It's quite complicated. It's quite a novel system. I'm not sure I fully agree, but, you know, if you want to play in easy mode, that's absolutely fine. But there are some costs to playing it in easy mode without using the optional orders. The biggie is you get too much intelligence. You get to see what the other guy does with their formations before you play yours. And by the end of the turn, you are making very different decisions about what to do with your formation than you would have done had you not seen all of those earlier moves. Now, too much intelligence is a systemic problem in all war games. We sit above the map like gods and see everything that's going. So anything that reduces the level of intelligence that we have is actually a good thing. We tend to use our biggest, best, most powerful formations last, because why wouldn't you optimize what they can do, certain that nobody can interfere with them because all the other formations have gone? Yeah, that doesn't sit well with me, having to wait until I finally unleash my panzer divisions at the end. It also means that the side with fewer formations is at a disadvantage. So, you know, typically the Germans have fewer but better formations. The Soviets have more but worse. But it means you have to move your panzer divisions before the Soviets get to counterattack with their tank corps. Now, there are random chit pool systems, which actually I'm quite in favor of. You can random chit pool per formation. So you put all the chits into a cup and you pull out and, oh, it's the 16th Panzer. That works well with some games like Brazen Chariots, which is very open in its nature. Works less well in very confined terrain where you really need some divisions to be moving ahead of others. Last Blitzkrieg or Panzer's Stand, for example. It also rewards failure with the failure flip rule, which is a personal bête noire. Because if you've ever been in the armed forces, you'll know that a command failure does not mean having a nice rest and brewing up a cup of tea. It means somebody saying, you lot, go to this objective, usually up a steep hill. And of course, you do everything in a hurry up and wait mode. So you get to the top of the hill and then somebody says, what the hell are you doing up here? Or you have to wait now because the other people haven't arrived in time and everything's in a bit of a funk, in a kind of bad funk, obviously not the James Brown kind of funk. And it's not relaxing at all. So with orders, failure means failure. Ditto, I think, for prepared defense, because, prepared. So orders makes you prepare your prepared defense by ordering it. It's not just done on a whim when you see how things are going with other formations. You think, ooh, that's looking a bit vulnerable now, so I'll just pop it into prepared defense. And then finally, if you don't use orders, it creates more of an I go, you go system, because effectively, you're writing your orders at the spur of the moment every time you activate a formation. Orders removes the ordering bit to the beginning. If you want to play on easy mode, that's fine. But if you use orders, it will mitigate these various problems. Good news, orders is super simple. Effectively, there are 3 orders, and each of those 3 orders has 2 nuances. First of all, Do you want to move your HQ? And by HQ, we mean the whole formation, but actually it's the HQ that we track. And if you do, is this a small move within your command radius, or do you want to do a big redeployment across your front, well beyond your command radius? If you don't want to move, well, do you want to be in prepared defense, holding that piece of terrain, or not in that prepared defense and be fine with retreating? Or indeed, are you just happy where you are and are going to attack from this position? And then thirdly, do you want to order a recovery? And if you do want to order a recovery, again, do you want it to be in prepared defense or not? So 3 fundamental orders, each with a nuance. So let's unpack those 6. First of all, move your HQ, but only within your command radius. The importance of this will become obvious soon. So in your pre-turn phase, there's a specific orders phase before you've activated any of your formations. You write down the order for a formation, for all of your formations. And the order is simply a hex number. Where do you want to move to? I mean, it could be the name of a village or city hex as well, if you prefer. Obviously, because it's the HQ that we are ordering, it has to be on a road or track. But that's all you have to do. Write a hex down. When you actually come to the activation phase for a particular unit, well, you just move it around normally. You can move it around normally because you're staying in your command radius. Really, couldn't be simpler. Next up, we're going to move that HQ and its formation, but beyond the command radius. Now, this is slightly more involved. Obviously, it doesn't happen too often because big movements are, difficult to carry off. In many respects, I think Dean designed this particular mechanism because he knew that actually this is a hard thing to pull off for a military formation, particularly a military formation that's already deployed. They have to undeploy, go to their move side, and then they have to go down a road, and then they have to get to their destination, and then they have to deploy again. Or perhaps you've just come on an entry hex, in which case you just go down the road and then you deploy. So, first of all, again, pre-turn orders phase, you write down the hex that you want the HQ to go to. If you need to clarify the route, if there's several ways you could get there, just note some waypoint hexes or villages or whatever. If there's a couple of bridges that you could take, just note which bridge you're going to go across, because it could matter. Usually it's obvious, but if it needs clarifying, then just add that extra hex. Then in the activation phase, when you put down your objective marker, either your objective or your double objective, you can also put down a march objective. Now, a lot of people, myself included, sort of treat this as optional because it's usually obvious where you're going to go to, or it's way in the back and it doesn't really matter. But formally, you should put down a march objective. And again, if there's any doubt, then this will help keep it all honest. In the activation activities part, then you move your units and HQ using this march routing rule, 2.4H. It's not a big rule, and I'll illustrate what this looks like in a moment. If you're a big man, you probably want to be using unit traffic as well, which just keeps you even more honest when you make these difficult movements. When Carl gets to release Breaking Point, the France-Belgium 1940 game, this kind of thing is going to be really important. Streaming through the Ardennes is a non-trivial exercise. And then finally, there's an activation cleanup phase when you remove the March OBJ. So what does that look like in practice? Okay, here's Trieste's HQ, here's a few of its units in deployed side, here's its combat train, and the white pin is kind of its command radius. They're all happily within its command radius. And you go, it's in the wrong place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I would like Trieste to move over here with covering this area of operations. And this is a very Dean kind of concepts area of operations. And I'm just going to clarify with a couple of waypoints which route I'm going to take. And that's essentially the orders phase. This location as a hex and any waypoints you need to do, just in case. Then you will put down your march objective and you will follow this route. So these chaps will flip from the deployed side, go into their move side, and go along this route. They can only move into a hex that's within 2 hexes either side of the route. This is one of the reasons why it's important to clarify what route you're going to take. Usually, if it's a big move, they're all going to be on the road anyhow in order to get the road movement bonus. Just because you said, I want to get here, doesn't mean you have to get here. It may be that you've said here and actually it's going to take 2 full activations, and horror of horrors, you start off by only getting a partial. So it might be that the Trieste HQ ends up here. And if it does, if it can't make the full distance, then you can move these guys within its command radius, and that's absolutely fine. It's always go in, zoom along, and then you're allowed to expand into the combat radius of your HQ. Obviously, if this is your first activation and Trieste a 5 or a 6, is it going to get that second activation that you've always dreamed of? Well, maybe it's fresh. So maybe it's 4, 5 or 6, 50-50. So you might not want to zoom these guys too far away from the road because it's going to take movement points to get back on the road. Or you may think, this is good enough for now. And any second activation I get, if I do one, is just an unexpected bonus. Because this is a big move, your combat train is probably going to go into Ghost, you probably want to move it, or all of that kind of good stuff. And then eventually you are going to arrive at your destination, probably. It's fine if you don't, for reasons. Ultimately, you arrive here. And then in another activation, you'll get to flip them back to their deployed side because, of course, you flip units between move and deployed before they move. So you can see doing a major move is quite an operation. And Dean was keen on this because he's a military man and he knows that doing a major move is quite an operation. It's not a trivial, we just all move across. This won't happen too often in your games. And it's not that complicated, but when it happens, you need to respect this particular aspect. Okay, that's writing orders and moving. If you don't want to move, well, in your pre-orders phase, you just write a cross or a dash or whatever. Don't have to record anything. In fact, if you don't record anything, that just says your HQ isn't moving. And then you just move your units normally. Easy peasy. If you don't want to move, but you do want to be in prepared defense, if you want to hold this terrain and not retreat, well, then just do an X or a dash or whatever and write PD. In the activation phase, you will enter prepared defense. So that's important to realize. The orders phase is before any of the activations. And just because you've ordered it into prepared defense doesn't mean it's in prepared defense. It will only enter prepared defense when that formation gets activated. Then in your activation phase, in the remainder of the activities, well, you just, do things as normal. Classic prepared defense, your partial activation. There's no voluntary retreats, and there's a change to how you come out of prepared defense. If you don't use the orders rule, you can move your HQ. Using orders, you cannot move your HQ. And the only way to come out of prepared defense is by the enemy action. Either they make your HQ be jumped, or they've monkeyed around with your MSR, and you're about to receive an MSR blocked marker, which then would take PD off. Next, if you want to recover in the orders phase, just put an R, and then you just go through the recovery activations table. Note, failure flip is not a thing. And if you want to recover but be in prepared defense, well, just put an R and PD. And that's it. That's how you write orders. Using orders gives you some opportunities that don't exist if you don't use orders. Number one, because writing, I want this formation into prepared defense, doesn't mean it goes in prepared defense. You probably want to activate your formations that are entering prepared defense early. because otherwise they risk being hit by your opponent before the prepared defense takes place. Now, that's true if you don't use orders as well, but here there's a real incentive to activating formations that are entering prepared defense. Obviously, if it's already in prepared defense from a previous turn, that's fine. Number 2, activate formations who HQs need to voluntarily retreat early. If your formation is either pocketed or about to be pocketed, then you almost certainly want to get that part sorted sooner rather than later. Number 3, activate formations that are at risk of losing their MSR and having a blocked marker, which takes off the prepared defense. Activate them last, so they get most of the turn in prepared defense. Those are all minor tweaks. The biggie is use your biggest, most powerful, most beefy formation when it makes best sense in the sequence of activating your formations. You don't have to just automatically save it till last. And then support these big formations when they make deep penetrations with follow-on, so that you're much more consciously orchestrating your formations to support each other rather than just activating a formation willy-nilly. Oh, I'll do this one. Oh, I'll do that one. It really makes you think about how, because you write the orders all together, it makes you think about how I can support each other and sequence each other to best effect, which I really like. And finally, if you're using the unit traffic rule, which also I would generally encourage, make sure you move formations in the front before you move formations in the back, because otherwise there'll be the most almighty of traffic jams. That's enough theory. Let's have a little look at a bit of practice. I've taken Inflection Point, the Kalich scenario, and the German opening moves, partly because I had a really lovely week, a couple of weeks ago, playing this out. Here is the north side of the map. In red are the Russian formations, the 191 Rifle Division and the 33rd Guards. The red lines are sort of their front lines. The dotted lines are their MSR routes. The pins with A's and B's on are the various traffics routes, which is a unique feature of that scenario. And on the edge of the map are the various points at which formations come on. So here's the 3rd Motorized, here's Kampf Group 60, here's the remainder of the 60th Motorized. These two pale ones, reinforcements, they come in later. This is taken from a map that I'm doing for one of the BCS videos to come. Here is my thoughts around, or positioning around the battleground. First of all, who do I want to go first? It could be the 3rd Motorized, it could be the 60th, it could be the 113 Infantry Division, or the 16th Panzer. Well, I think I would like 16th Panzer to go first. I've noted that it's in entry hex D. Now, entry hex D is this line, so I've actually written my order as I want to go to 1814, which is around about here, via 106, which is down here. Is down here. And I want to go via 1215, which is this elbow here. So they're going to do this, basically. Why not just show you the arrows? This is its orders movement. Now, probably you're going to conform to the road because you want it to move as far as possible, but you don't have to. I've put in quite a challenging one, so I'm assuming that it's going to get full activations twice because it's the first turn. Who doesn't hope that their Panzer Division is going to get 2 full activations? It is a spearhead formation, which means it gets a +1 modifier on the snafu table on the 1st and 2nd and 3rd turns, so that will help it. I've marked, and this isn't necessary, I've marked this stuff in italics. There's a gap in the Russian front line here, and it would be great if I could zoom a unit through that gap and go and attack the 33rd Guards headquarters and make it jump, because if I made it jump, the 33rd Guards would lose its prepared defense, and that would make winkling out these units that are on the secondary roads that I want to go along much, much easier. That's my first order. Next up, I want the 60th Motorized which isn't a spearhead, and I want it to tootle along, and I want it to deal with this Russian unit, Soviet unit here, which is right next to entry hex A, where the 3rd motorized come on. The good news is that this unit is beyond the command radius of its HQ, so although the 191 is in prepared defense, this unit isn't. So all we need to do is make it retreat and open up this road for everything else. That's what I wanted to do. Clear this hex next to entry X A, and then largely kind of fix the front line. I mean, if you can do any more damage, great, knock yourself out. But really, this is the crucial thing I want. Next, KG-60 will follow up by pushing through down this road. This is one of the major German axes of advance. I would love it to displace this. Again, I'm assuming that it is probably going to get double activation. It's also a spearhead unit. That would be great. So force a big retreat out of this unit to take it out of this hex. This hex is, by the way, part of Route A, and if you have all 3 of Route A in this game, you get a victory point. So it's worth it as well. So that's what KG-60, a small unit, but a powerful unit, is going to do. Next up, the 3rd motorized is going to go for a little bit of a drive. It's also a spearhead, and it's going to go down this road here and then cross on this track and get to here behind the Soviet line. Remember, this is where the HQ will go, so some of the lead elements could go down here even further. You'll notice, by the way, there's this 184 question mark here and just off the map further south. One of the things the Soviet player has to do is decide where the 184 is going to come on in turn 2. And it can come on here. That would be probably a bad idea, unless you like pockets, or here, or further south. So that's just to note what that is. Then, fifthly, I'm going to bring on the 113 infantry, and I'm going to use it to come down here to fix the 33rd Guards. I don't want the 33rd Guards trying to play fast and loose with the MSR of the 16th Panzer. I also don't want the 113 and the 16th Panzer to cross their streams, so I'm going to be mindful of that. And yeah, I would like the 113 to support the 16th Panzer and fix the 33rd Guards. So that's my thinking for the first turn. There are a couple of infantry divisions in the southern part of the map, but their movements are pretty trivial. I've done that in an evolved way, partly because it's the first turn and partly as a demonstration for you as to how I might think about it. This is actually what the order would look like. For that unit, they're all moves because the Germans come in from the map edge. Here's the destination hex. Here is a clarification of which entry hex is going to come on. And here's a clarification of a waypoint it needs to cross, and ditto here and here. And that's all you have to do. This is actually all that writing orders really looks like. And this is a first turn with a lot of movement. So once they're in place, a lot of these hexes just become a cross because they're just in the right place already. What I would like to achieve in this is for the Germans to cut off this secondary road down here and cut off this one over here, which would muck about with the MSR for both of these divisions, and their combat trains would come off this turn and they would get blocked markers the next turn, removing their prepared defense. That's what planning looks like on quite a hard example. Usually, it would be much simpler than this. 4 what-ifs. So, what if I get a second activation? So, if you get a second activation, the formation must conform to the orders that you've written. If you've got a rifle division that only gets a second activation on a 6 and has fatigue 3, well, obviously you don't have to worry about it. But do bear in mind, for your big mobile divisions, you need to think, what would my orders like to cover for that second activation? What happens if the order becomes stupid or unachievable because events? I was going to advance my rifle division over there, but a panzer division has suddenly decided to occupy the same amount of space. Well, you don't have to move all the way to the hex that you said is your destination. In fact, you don't even have to move at all. You could not move, or you could move a little bit. If you move a little bit, you do have to move in the direction of the hex that you said you wanted to go to. What if you're forced out of prepared defense? Well, prepared defense no longer applies. So if you said, I want my formation to be in prepared defense, but your HQ is jumped and your MSR gets blocked, well, then you can't. But you don't suffer any penalties for that. If your prepared defense was for recovery, well, you still get to do the recovery. That's fine. Failed activations, as we said, fail is a fail. There is no failure flip nonsense, which is a spawny rule, where spawny is a British word meaning undeserved luck, putting it politely. 5 reasons I love this order system. Well, actually a 6th reason. It's really simple. 5 reasons. It creates a more thoughtful play. It makes me pause at the start of a new day. So without orders, there's a sort of tendency to just roll over, all right, it's the next turn, do weather, do reinforcements, off I go again. It makes me consider, what do I want to do in this turn? What can I realistically achieve? What might the enemy be thinking and wondering of doing? Being more thoughtful, taking that literally 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes whilst you sip a coffee or neck a beer and ponder what's going to happen, I think really adds to the game. Number 2, there is less perfect play. It stops me taking advantage of seeing earlier activations and deciding what to do afterwards, both my own activations and my opponent's activations. And it stops me keeping my best activations to last. It stops the side with fewer activations being disadvantaged. Number 3, there are more missed opportunities. Now you may say, well, isn't that a bit disappointing? Well, yes, it is, but I love that. I love, my opponent sweeps in front of my front line in a risky, bold move, and I had no idea they were going to do that. And if I had, well, then obviously I would have gone piling through and smashed into their MSR. But I didn't think about that. Thinking about Breaking Point 1940 again. How many times will the French have a DCR armour division that should have done that, but had to do this? Brilliant. How many other games give you an opportunity to be disappointed? Yes, you may grind your teeth a bit, but it's fine. I didn't know my formations were going to do that well. So if I had known, I would have, been braver, or I didn't know they were going to do that badly. That badly is less of a concern, because if they do really, really badly, all the other formations don't have to implement theirs. They can not move, or they can move part of the way. But certainly, if they don't do as well as if they did better than I thought they were going to do, wow, another missed opportunity. Number 4 even, play is obviously more planned. So it's less whimsical, it's less spur of the moment. I think that's all to the good. Military operations are planned operations. Operations that aren't planned do not go well. I'm looking at you, Italian invasion of Greece in winter, mountains, without reinforcements or training. So I like that you can't turn the command chaos of a failed snafu result into recovery. I like that you can't just improvise prepared defense. You have to plan that. You have to prepare it at the start of the day. I think those are great things. You can't just redeploy your formations just because something's turned up unexpectedly. And I like that you have to think of your formations in the round and think about how to orchestrate and coordinate them together. I think that's a lovely thing to be encouraged to do. Fifthly, it just feels like a better simulation using orders. You have to play out the activations taking turns. We can't avoid that, We can't do all the turns simultaneously. It would be chaos. So we are hampered. BCS reduces that by doing one formation, another formation, one formation, rather than all of the formations and all the formations. But at least we can plan simultaneously. And it just brings us a little bit closer to modeling what military operations are like, which after all is the point of playing war games. If you didn't want to play a war game, you could just play a nice Euro game. There are many great designs, but I play war games because I'm interested in military operations. So something that makes it feel like more of a military operation is to the good. I strongly commend you play writing orders and enjoy feeling a bit more like a proper general. Thanks very much for watching this. I hope you found this informative. Please watch some of the other BCS videos if you haven't. Also, if you haven't already pre-ordered Battalion S3 and its Danger Forward game, I strongly commend that you do so. It's got lots of fascinating articles written by somebody who really cares and is really passionate about this game, mentioning no names. Thanks and happy gaming.